The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please report to the floor of the House and take seats. All members will please take their seats and report to the floor. The clerk will ring the bell. All members will please report to the floor. We are about to have the morning roll call. We're about to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. As we have our devotion this morning, I want to announce with a lot of sadness that former Governor Zell Miller passed away this morning at his home in Young Harris. One of the greatest governors of the 20th century in this state. He gave Georgia hope, and many, many young people for generations will benefit from his vision. So please remember he or his family, the former First Lady Shirley Miller, in your prayers, and as we get additional information about the arrangements, we will share those with you. Thank you. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 146th House District, Representative Shaw Blackman. Representative Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. Really excited today to have the opportunity to welcome to the People's House one of our nation's heroes. He has served with distinction in our armed forces, and he and his lovely wife, Lindsay, and their two beautiful children serve faithfully our community and their congregation at Church in the Park in Perry, Georgia. My wife and I actually had the pleasure of hearing one of his sermons not too many months ago, and I believe it'd be fair to say, or accurate, that it was about dirt, all about dirt. That he is truly an inspiration and a blessing to our area and beyond. It is a great honor and a privilege of mine to present to you today Pastor Jordan Kersey.
Mr. Speaker, if I can make any suggestions before I'm invited back up here, could we make this stage just a little bit wider? It's mighty cramped up here. My name is Jordan Robert Kersey. I was born to a 15-year-old mama. Her name's LaDonna Kersey. She got pregnant at 14 years old and had me at 15 years old. I grew up in a 600 square foot home that had holes in the floor. I'd be playing with my G.I. Joes, and if I got too close to those holes, they would fall, and we'd have to crawl underneath the house in the crawl space to get those G.I. Joes. I can remember being so poor, stealing food from my cafeteria at Tucker Elementary in Perry, stealing food and bringing it back home to my little brother William so we'd have food to eat. I can remember failing the 3rd grade. I can remember being harassed for being in special ed, being called an idiot, stupid, told I would never amount to anything. Despite all that, somehow, some way, I was able to attend and to graduate from Bible College in Dallas, Texas. I've served and I've been shot at in Afghanistan multiple times. I started a church. Let me rephrase that. My wife, my beautiful wife, isn't she beautiful? She and I and our 6-month-old son started a church at 27 years old. Within about 15 to 18 months, that church grew to 3 services. We now do a 9, a 10, and 11 a.m. service. It just kind of exploded for some reason. A video of me preaching, unbeknownst to me, someone filmed a video of me preaching, and it was about 2 minutes and 39 seconds of me preaching. That video garnered a little over 15 million views on social media. I've literally been invited to preach all over the world. However, despite all of what I just said, and I mean this with every fiber in my being, despite all of that, standing here before you today at our great state's capital, this is my greatest moment. This is an absolute honor. Thank you, Shaw Blackman, for having me, and thank you guys for having me. And please never take that seat for granted, because for little old people like me, this is such an honor. So thank you for having me. I think I just wasted 3 of my 5 prescribed minutes, so I'm going to burn through the next 2 so you guys can get busy. I was so excited when I got invited by Shaw to come do this. I'm telling you guys, I put together a sermon that would preach the paint off this 500-year-old wall. And then I got my packet, and it said, limit your comments to 5 minutes. And I about had a stroke. I can't introduce myself in less than 5 minutes. I think I've already done that. Is that my timer? Does that mean, is that a timer? This stage is so small, I'd like to see someone. There ain't no room to get to me, really, so I'm probably going to be fine for a little bit. Can I say stuff like that up here? I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm allowed not to say. You know, right now, can I step on toes for a minute? Is that all right? Okay. Right now, we as a nation are more divided than we've ever been in the history of our nation. Did someone just say amen? Okay, you can say that. You're allowed to say that. Right now, our nation is more divided than it's ever been in the history of our nation. Do you agree with that? Proverbs says that my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge and understanding. Say that again. Proverbs says that my people, or in other words, the United States of America currently is being destroyed because of lack of knowledge and understanding. We are decimating our people daily because of lack of understanding and knowledge. And to me, it's because of the things that divide us. We are divided. And the things that divide us is what's destroying this nation. Let's have a little fun for a moment. Let's look in this room right now. Look around you. Let's look at what divides us just today. Raise your hand if you're a Democrat. You can be proud. Lift them up. We already know. Now, my Republicans, where are you at? Let me see those hands. Feel that tension? You feel it? Every day, he said. Let's get to one that's probably a little more tender. What about race? Where's my African American friends at? Where are you at? I see you. I see you. I see y'all up there. What about my Caucasian buddies? Where are you at? I see you. We see y'all. And any other race that I did not just name off, raise your hand. Okay. I see you. We know race will divide quicker than a double-edged sword. Can I say that? What about gender? Where's all my females at to make things happen? Yeah, I see y'all. What about the males? Oh, my man. Here's another one. All I'm talking about is what divides us in this room. What about religion? How many Christians do I have in the house? Majority. You know, you can divide a Christian into a subcategory. Watch this. Raise your hand if you're a Christian. Look at all these hands. All right, put it back down. Raise your hand if you're Baptist. Okay. Put them back down. Raise your hand if you're Methodist. See that? Put it back down. What about my Presbyterian folks? Okay. What about my Creasters? My Creasters. My Creasters. You don't know what a Creaster is? You're not a pastor then. Let me tell you about a Creaster. A Creaster comes to church twice a year, Christmas and Easter. I'm going to ask one more time. And I'm going to ask the Holy Spirit to do what I can't. Where's all my Creasters at? Anybody? He's waving out there. There's a Creaster. Can we at least agree that our nation is divided? And that race, color, creed, nationality, Democrat, Republican, race, gender, and everything else divides us as a nation? Can we agree on that? Okay. I believe, let's throw all that out the window. I believe it's not that we're divided. You're thinking, man, you just spent 5 of your minutes telling me how we were divided. I don't believe that the issue is division. I believe the issue is that cell phone that didn't get silenced. So please silence in all cell phones, whoever that was. I'm just kidding. I say that at church to my members when their phone rings when I'm in the middle of preaching. I believe the issue isn't division. I believe the issue is perspective. You see my... The issue is perspective. And if you get what I'm about to tell you, you're going to change this state And that may very well change this nation. Because rather, if you recognize it or not, you have that power. We voted you into that power. And I believe we can at least start and change the great state of Georgia. The issue isn't division. The issue is perspective. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. If I'm not, I'm sorry. But Shaw, will you please stand up? Mr. Speaker, do you mind standing up? I don't think that was allowed. I ain't coming back, y'all. I'm going to tread lightly.
Enjoy.
All right. What did I tell you is tearing us apart? Not division, but what? Perspective. And this is not a trick question. Mr. Speaker, what does that say? What do you see?
Diet Coke.
He said he sees Diet Coke. One more time. No, just you had it right the first time. Diet Coke's what he saw. Representative Shaw, what do you see?
I think I see
Nutritional facts. What else do you see?
Total sugars.
Total sugars, a little sodium in there,
Yeah.
carbohydrates,
Something like that.
something like that. Mr. Speaker, you said you saw Diet Coke. You're going to start to get this in a minute. But Shaw, you said you see nutritional facts, total carbs.
I did.
That's what you see. You don't see Diet Coke anywhere. And Mr. Speaker, you see Diet Coke, and you don't see nutritional facts. You don't see sodium. You don't see total carbs. You don't see serving per bottle, total calories. All you see is Diet Coke. Do you see the difference in perspective? Who's right? Everybody yelled out, "The speaker's right, the speaker's right." I could have said anything and they would have said the speaker's right. But in all actuality, they're both right. You may be seated, gentlemen. Thank you. Who was wrong? Not the speaker, right? Neither were wrong. They both were looking at the same bottle, seeing two different things. You know what that is? That's not division. We've allowed it to become division, but all that is a difference in perspective. You don't understand my perspective. You don't understand how we as a people have been treated for 100, 200 years. You don't understand what we've had to endure as a people. I'm not seeing it. I can't relate to that. I don't understand where you're coming from. And what should have been just a difference in perspective has turned into division. And I believe with all my heart that if we come into it with that pretense, that irregardless of Democrat, Republican, black, white, yellow, purple, green, male, female, Baptist, Methodist, Creaster, that if you put aside, because that's what we're dependent on today, if you can put aside your differences and respect each other's perspective, I believe it will trickle up out of this hall and it can flood the state of Georgia. And I believe within every fiber of my being that you can be what the Lord uses to change this state and ultimately change this nation. Life would be so much better if we could use those things that often divide us, but instead to allow them to strengthen us. I'm out of time, so I'm going to ask you guys to please stand up. Let's close in prayer. Father God, I ask right now in the name of Jesus Christ that every single difference that is represented here today would be null and void. I pray that it would be replaced with a greater perspective. Father God, our nation needs perspective. Father God, we need to see things through the lens of the other person and through the other gender and through the other race and so forth and so on. Father God, would you change our perspective? And ultimately, would you change our heart to see the other's perspective? God, I love you so much. I thank you that you can take this ADHD, failed third grade twice, special ed nobody, and somehow put me at our great state's floor speaking. God, if you can do that in my life, I wonder what you can do in these powerful men and women's lives standing before me today. Lord, you've called them to change the world. And I pray that you would empower them and give them the strength and the fortitude to do just that. God, we love you. We bless your mighty name. It's in that mighty name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Mr. Speaker, I'm leaving this Diet Coke up there for you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much for your time. Seriously, thank you.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has reviewed the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Taylor, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, on 59 moves following be establishes the order of business in the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Report of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1074 by Representative Stevens, the 164th bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 4811-2 of the official code of Georgia and Ontario relating the excise tax on tobacco products.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 1075 by Representative Gertler, the 8th Beazold, the 133rd Cook of the 18th, McGowan of the 138th, Stovall, the 71st, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 28 of the official code of Georgia and Ontario relating to financial affairs.
Appropriations.
House Resolution 1613 by Representative Gilligan of the 24th, Gravely the 67th, Williams the 145th, Donahue the 30th, Blackman of the 146th, and others. A resolution urging the federal government to address the issue of data security breaches.
Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications.
House Resolution 1614 by Representative Carter, the 92nd, Scott of the 76th, Smyrie the 135th, Hughley of the 136th, Trammell the 132nd, and others. A resolution recommending that local municipalities continue bail reform efforts.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Resolution 1648 by Representative Smyrie, the 135th, Williams, the 168th, Hughley of the 136th, Scott of the 76th, and Bentley of the 139th. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on African American History and Culture.
Special Rules.
Senate Bill 485 by Senator Jordan of the 6th, Tate of the 38th, Williams the 39th, Parent of the 42nd, Orrock the 36th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend an act providing a homestead exemption from the City of Atlanta Independent School District ad valorem taxes.
Intragovernmental Coordination.
Senate Bill 486 by Senator Jordan of the 6th, Tate of the 38th, Williams the 39th, Parent of the 42nd, Orrock the 36th, and others. Bill being titled an act to provide a homestead exemption from the City of Atlanta Independent School District ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1066 by Representative Wallace of the 119th, a bill relating to state purchasing. House Bill 1073 by Representative Gertler of the 8th, a bill relating to general provisions regarding state government. House Resolution 1612 by Representative Elam of the 153rd, resolution urging the federal government to take extra measures to provide the necessary health care and additional needs of our veterans and their families who are affected by the contaminated water at Fort Lejeune. House Resolution 1647 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, resolution honoring the life of SPC Jackie Marcel Morgan, dedicating a bridge in his memory. Senate Bill 484 by Senator Payne of the 54th, a bill to exempt the city of Dalton from election requirements. Senate Bill 489 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, a bill to amend an act creating the Cobb Marietta Coliseum and Exhibit Hall Authority, through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Terry England of the 116th District, Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, submitted the following report. The Speaker of the Committee on Appropriations has had under consideration the following bills of the House and Senate, and has instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 366 to pass by substitute, respectfully submitted. Representative Terry England of the 160th District, Chairman. Representative Bill Hitchens of the 161st District, Chairman of the Committee on Defense and Veteran Affairs, submitted the following report. The Speaker of the Committee on Defense and Veteran Affairs has had under consideration the following resolutions of the House, and has instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Resolution 1430 do pass, respectfully submitted. Representative Bill Hitchens, 161st District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local has had under consideration the following bills of the House and the Senate. This instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1061 do pass. House Bill 1063 do pass. House Bill 1065 do pass. House Bill 1072 do pass. Senate Bill 477 do pass. Senate Bill 478 do pass. House Bill 1064 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1067 do pass. House Bill 1068 do pass. House Bill 1069 do pass. House Bill 1070 do pass. House Bill 1071 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman. Representative Golick, the 140th District Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary Non-Civils had in consideration the following bills of the Senate. It instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations. Senate Bill 154 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 315 do pass by substitute. Senate Bill 407 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Golick of the 40th District Chairman. Representative Epps of the 144th District Chairman of the Committee on Motor Vehicles submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Motor Vehicles has had on consideration the following bills of the House and the Senate. It instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations. Senate Bill 446 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Epps of the 144th District Chairman. Representative Hardin of the 148th District Chairman of the Committee on Special Rules submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Special Rules has had on consideration the following resolution of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Resolution 388 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Hardin of the 148th District Chairman. Representative Kevin Tanner of the 9th District Chairman on the Committee on Transportation submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Transportation has had under consideration the following resolution of the Senate. This instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. Senate Resolution 745 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Kevin Tanner of the 9th District Chairman. That completes the reports of standing committees.
We are about to go on to the local calendar. We are about to go on to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. 6 bills on the local calendar relate to homestead exemption and require a recorded 2/3 roll call vote for passage. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Oh, okay. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 1061 by Representative Morris, the 156th Town of Terrytown. House Bill 1063 by Representative Bruce of the 61st City of South Fulton. House Bill 1065 by Representative Benton of the 31st City of Jefferson. House Bill 1072 by Representative Caldwell of the 111th Henry County. Senate Bill 477 by Senator Parent of the 42nd City of Decatur. Senate Bill 478 by substitute by Senator Parent of the 42nd City of Brookhaven. House Bill 1064 by substitute by Representative Martin of the 49th Fulton County. House Bill 1067 by Representative Jones of the 91st City of Stonecrest. House Bill 1068 by Representative Jones of the 91st City of Stonecrest. House Bill 1069 by Representative Jones of the 91st City of Stonecrest. House Bill 1070 by Representative Jones of the 91st City of Stonecrest. House Bill 1071 by Representative Jones of the 91st City of Stonecrest.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 155, the nays are 0. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. For what purpose does Representative Benton rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
Make a motion that all the bills on the local calendar be immediately transmitted to the Senate.
Representative Benton has moved that all of the bills on the local calendar which were just passed would be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and they are on their way. Chair recognizes Representative Dreyer to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Hey, David. How you doing?
I'm great.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honor today to recognize a constituent and friend, our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Bo Elongo, who was born in Cameroon, Central Africa. He graduated from Kennesaw State University and earned his medical degree from Morehouse School of Medicine in 2004. He went on to complete his residency training from the Emory University School of Medicine in 2008. Dr. Elongo served as the Assistant Medical Director at the Southern Regional Medical Center in 2003. He currently practices at DeKalb Medical Center and is also the founder and co-CEO of MD House Call. Dr. Elongo also co-founded the Elongo Family Foundation, which supports the education of disabled children in his home country. Here's Dr. Elongo.
Thank you. I just want to thank the state of Georgia. I moved here, as you heard from my bio, 26 years ago. Did undergrad, med school, and residency here. Married here and have two beautiful daughters that are Georgians. And I just want to thank all of you for all the hard work that you do on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Hey, Doc. We are going on to morning orders. Whenever the body is ready. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Rules Committee, Chairman Meadows, for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just up here to recognize a couple of people. If y'all will look right up here, wave your hand, Bubba. That is my son and my daughter-in-law. And I have 3 young men wandering around here somewhere. They're pretty like their granddaddy. And over here on the wall, I have my wife. Wednesday was our 47th year together. And unlike y'all, she loves me. And I want to publicly say, thank you, I love you, sugar.
The chair, not that it would have done much good, failed to put a time limit on the rules, Chairman, as well as with the other morning orders. So before I get any further, 1 minute each on morning orders. Chair recognizes Representative Stovall for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just saying, woo, he didn't say anything about 1 minute. So today I'm here honoring the men and women in radio here in the state of Georgia. These are the gentlemen and one woman that make it happen as program and promotion directors. There's Tony Brown, C.C. Wilson McGee, Charles Mitchell, Derek Harper, Kevin Coolin Fox. And these individuals have done outstanding jobs here in the state of Georgia promoting radio and making sure that we are getting the information out through the radio waves. So would you please join me in welcoming this year our men and women in radio. Would you please stand and help me to welcome them to the state capitol. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Glanton for a morning order.
What you got, Gloria?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the members of the delegation join me here, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, good morning. I am joined by my colleagues of the Clayton County House delegation this morning to recognize and to honor a very distinguished group from Clayton County. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in the gallery this morning the new state champion mock trial team for 2018, the Jonesboro High School team. Jonesboro High School has won the mock trial state championship 9 times since 1988 and was the national champions in 2007 and 2008. Before we recognize the team, I would ask that the coaches and the teacher advisor please stand to be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the state champions will compete at the national level, representing the great state of Georgia in Reno, Nevada, on May the 10th through the 12th. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome and recognize and honor our state champion mock trial team, Jonesboro High School. Go Cardinals! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure as my fellow delegates in the Paulding County delegation come up here to recognize a student, a sophomore at East Paulding High School. You'll love her name. Her name is Georgia. Miss Georgia Leonard comes to us from East Paulding High School today via New Zealand. She is an exchange student, and we're happy to have her here. She's wanting to learn about Georgia government, and so she's here today in the gallery. Would y'all give her a warm Georgia House welcome? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Price for a morning order. I'll remind members again, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House and guests. I have with me the Roswell delegation to honor and recognize our craft brewers in Roswell. As we all know, the #1 place in the country to do business is Georgia, and now we have increased our craft brewers to that wonderful list. The number of craft brewers in the state has tripled in 5 years, $2 billion economic impact to the state. We have 4 such breweries in Roswell, mainly because of the 2016 SB 85 that allowed them to expand their operation. So with us today is Gate City and Variant, and I just want to recognize them. I'm sorry they didn't bring any samples with them. If you come to Roswell, you can test their craft beers, and if you go to all 4 of them, you get a commemorative glass. So come on to Roswell and check them out. The Roswell Brews is what they're called collectively, the 4 of them. So we thank them for what they have brought to Roswell and to Georgia. And if you would join me in recognizing Variant Brewing Company and Gate City Brewing Company and stand and give them a hand. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Schofield for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, today I recognize some distinguished members from East Point, College Park, Forest Park, Southeast Atlanta, the best district in the world, District 60. They are the PTA presidents, PTSA, and parent liaisons that do the work in our wonderful schools. So if you would join me in giving them a hand to welcome them to our house and their house. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Buddy Harden for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this week, a young state trooper, Tyler Parker, while off duty taking his daughter home, was killed in an automobile accident. His 3-year-old daughter received head injuries and possibly broken bones. She is recovering in a Macon hospital. Tyler was a young man determined to follow in his father's footsteps. Gary Parker, his father, is a retired state trooper and a longtime friend of mine. Tyler had worked with the Crisp County Sheriff's Department until he was able to get into trooper school. Then his lifelong ambition was fulfilled when he graduated from trooper school and returned to Crisp County to serve the people of Crisp, Dooley, and Turner counties as a Georgia State trooper. Tyler was a compassionate and dedicated young man. He will long be remembered for his love of family and friendship, as well as his devotion to his beloved Blue Brotherhood in the state of Georgia. This loyal man and friend will be missed by all who had a great fortune of knowing him. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the memory of this young man whose service to the state of Georgia as a trooper and the Georgia State Patrol was cut short by this tragic accident. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Marin for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Buenos días a todos. Today I rise to recognize a very good friend. She's sitting in the gallery. Name is Magdalena Maggie Martinez, Honorable Magdalena Maggie Martinez. She has been a dedicated public servant for over 20 years and has built a reputation on honesty and integrity over the course of an impressive career. She served in the House of Representatives for Puerto Rico and passed legislations that slash adoption wait time for orphan children. Maggie was named Legislature of the Year in 1999. She was appointed by Governor Sonny Perdue to the Early Childhood and Learning Representative in Congressional District 13. So again, I want you guys to recognize, I think I just saw her, I think she just stepped out. But again, I just want to recognize the great work that Magdalena Maggie Martinez has done for Puerto Rico and for the state of Georgia. She's been a resident for the last 20 years for Georgia. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Laricki for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning to recognize March as sudden unexplained death in children. The governor does a proclamation every year recognizing March as the sudden unexplained death in children. And this morning, along with Chair Lady Cooper, that has done a resolution recognizing March, I just wanted to say on behalf of dear friends of mine, Chris and Gail Rudd, and their son, Levi Kaysen Rudd. If you'll bring your attention to the screens, this is dear friends of mine, Chris and Gail Rudd. Their son, Levi Kaysen Rudd, was born March the 24th, 2011. And on March the 7th, 2013, when they went in the room to get him out of bed, they discovered that he had went home to be with the Lord. One of the hardest funerals I've ever attended in my life, and this is the face that I see when I see the letters SUDC. Thank you for helping me recognize this month as sudden unexplained death in children. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes Representative Beasley Teague for a morning order. How's your arm?
It's still with me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I have never experienced weather like I have this week in my district. But the Lord blessed. He let me see that he can take roofs off on this side, knock trees on this side, and many of us are still standing, and nobody, I mean nobody, was killed. I'm so thankful this morning. I had to come tell you, what does it look like when the girl is thankful? This is what she looks like when she's thankful. No matter what my arm might be doing, I'm truly thankful that nobody was hurt. And for anybody want to take a ride out in my district and look at what's there, I'll be more than willing to drive you even. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate everybody. Keep us in prayer.
Can I wait till your other arm is healed? Chair recognizes Representative Cannon for a morning order.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, youth. Leaders who can hear the sound of our collective voice. We are here to join the youth-led, nonpartisan movement organized by our students of Georgia, known as the March for Our Lives Atlanta. This is our local version of the Washington, D.C. March. The march starts at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Saturday, March 24th, in Representative Abel Mabel Thomas's district at the Center for Civil and Human Rights. The march ends here on our state grounds capitals. It is in Liberty Plaza. Please join our youth's peaceful event to amplify their voices and follow the route at #ThankYouStudents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Battles for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a special group that is here today from Cartersville, Bartow County, and that is Grace Christian Academy. If they're here, would they stand? Do we have those here, or are they out in the, I guess they're wandering the halls. But if you see some that looks like they might be from a Grace Academy, say thank you for being here today.
Chair recognizes for a morning order Representative Efstration and Representative Dreyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with your permission, some other members that might want to join me here in the well. It's a great honor to recognize a very special guest that we have with us in the gallery today. Justice Michael P. Boggs of the Supreme Court of Georgia is with us in the gallery. And this House passed House Resolution 1370, recognizing and commending the Honorable Michael P. Boggs for his tenure on the Georgia Council on Criminal Justice Reform. This was created in 2011 by legislation passed by this body, and it was charged to research and recommend policies which would save money on corrections, lower recidivism rates, and make communities safer throughout the state of Georgia. This council has worked tirelessly under Justice Boggs' co-chairmanship over the past 7 years. And as a result, with near unanimous bipartisan support, this body has adopted most of the recommendations made by that council. We're so very honored to have Justice Boggs with us here today, and we thank him for his 7 years of work with House Resolution 1370. Justice, would you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Former member of the House. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the Dean of this House, Chairman Calvin Smyrie, for a morning order. This House will be in order.
Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I come this morning with a heavy heart. When I spoke with Representative Hugo last night, I was coming to recognize the passing of our Clerk of Superior Court, Dr. Bishop Ann Hartman in Columbus, and I just want to read a quote from her resolution that we are going to present today. Representative Smith, Representative Hughley, Representative Buckner, Representative Pizzo. And whereas her motto was, I am because he is, I came because he did, and I will because he makes it possible. So Ann Hartman, you will be missed. We love you, and she's in a good place. She's gone home with the Lord. And I could not leave this well without mentioning Zell Miller. I served with Zell Miller, Representative Hughley as well, who's standing here with me. And Zell Miller was a great Georgian. And I remember his favorite quotation was that if you ever see a turtle sitting on a fence post, you know that he or she didn't get there by themselves. Somebody helped put them there. Another one of the moments I remember is when Al Williams came to the Capitol for the first time in 1975. He came here as the first African American to serve with Zell Miller. And we just had a great relationship since that time. And Zell Miller, as the speaker eloquently stated this morning, was an outstanding Georgian. He did a lot of great things for this state, and one we all know about and appreciate is the Hope Scholarship. So we've lost two giants in our midst, Bishop Ann Hartman and Governor Zell Miller. And I just wanted to come today, and Mr. Speaker, I appreciate you allowing me this opportunity to come today to pay tribute to two great Georgians who gave so much. It's often stated that you make your living by what you get, but you make your life by what you give. Both of these Georgians made their lives by giving. Amen.
House will continue to be in order. We are going to recognize some very distinguished guests with us today. Then the clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1420.
House Resolution 1420 by Representative Gravely of the 67th, Maxwell the 17th, Alexander the 66th, and Rakestraw the 19th. A resolution recognizing and commending Taylor C. Duncan and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could ask for the attention of my colleagues to see the screen up here for a short video presentation, please.
21-year-old Taylor Duncan dreams big. Diagnosed with autism early in life, he never let it get in the way of his love for baseball.
I went through sensory issues, speech issues, anxiety issues, and many other issues associated with having autism and the social stigma associated with it. When we use the four-seam graph...
Family, mentors, and coaches helped him overcome. Duncan says they simply believed in him.
Alrighty.
And he believes in others. Last year, he founded the Alternative Baseball Organization.
To develop this whole sport of baseball and to raise awareness and acceptance for autism and special needs worldwide, and to inspire those to go after their dream, whatever it may be.
On this day, Duncan brings his players to the Chevy Youth Baseball Clinic at SunTrust Park.
You want to be looking at a four-seam grip? You want to celebrate the individual. As you know, no two guys play the game the same way, but guys can still be successful, and we want to celebrate that. But most importantly, we want to make sure these kids are having fun.
Duncan, who has a pretty good arm of his own, wants the world to know about his athletes and to believe in them.
They're gaining the social skills that they need to be able to do what they want to do in life to be able to follow their dreams.
Wesley Thomas has 2 sons following theirs.
How much have you seen this change them? Oh man, a lot. Rock the shoulders. For them to get out here and just enjoy it with everybody else, it opened their eyes up, man.
Hey guys, you guys have fun?
Yes! Awesome. Yeah, you're here at SunTrust
Man,
Park,
it's amazing.
home of the Atlanta Braves.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. It's just surreal.
We want to take a picture.
God's blessed us, man. He really has.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to introduce a very, very special individual from our community. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think it or whether you think you cannot, you are right." Taylor Duncan is the founder and commissioner of Alternative Baseball, which started in West Cobb and is now in Paulding County. To meet him is inspiring, to know him is to love him, but to call him your friend is a great honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you one of the most inspiring men I've ever met in my life, someone who looks at individuals who the world and society has told that they cannot do anything, that they should sit on the sidelines, that they're not able to compete. He shows them that they can, that there is a place for them on the baseball diamond. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my friend, my constituent, Mr. Taylor Duncan.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for having me here. Thank you, Representative Gravely, for inviting me, and thank you for allowing me to take the floor for the next minute and 30. I would like to, again, thank you for inviting me and all of you for allowing me to speak today, as well as the representatives from Paulding County who have sponsored this resolution. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as stated before, as a person on the spectrum, when I was younger, I went through speech issues, sensory issues, anxiety issues, other issues associating with being on the autism spectrum. Through the years, I was told no by coaches who, due to preconceived ideas of what one with autism and with a disadvantage can accomplish. Through the years, with the support of those who have helped me, I've been able to get to where I am today. I will leave you all today with this. To me, autism is not what I consider to be an inability or a disability. It is simply a disadvantage, a hurdle, an obstacle. We all have hurdles and obstacles in life. All we need is one chance to show what we can do. Every person, regardless of their hurdles and difficulties in life, deserves the chance to be accepted for who they are and supported to be the best they can be. When we take our time and put in the initiative toward helping others, as well as with what we strive to accomplish, we can make a better society for those around us, and we can make a better state of Georgia. By supporting one another instead of using judgment and preconceived ideas, we can break the barriers and we can power through those perceptions. Thank you all very much again. Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1527.
House Resolution 1527 by Representative Chandler, the 105th, Cox, the 108th, Coleman of the 97th, Clark of the 98th, and Kirby the 114th. A resolution recognizing and commending Andy Dyer on being named the Region 8 7A Coach of the Year and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Joyce Chandler for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning or afternoon, colleagues, almost. It is my privilege today to recognize Andy Dyer, who, as was stated, was Region 8 7A Coach of the Year. Coach Dyer has been at Archer High School for 9 years, and he certainly deserves the title of being Coach of the Year. But there's so much more to this man than just being an outstanding football coach. He has a love for the Lord that is amazing, and he exemplifies that as he interacts with these young men. He is a mentor. He's a role model for them. He believes that football is a great teacher of young men, but so is his responsibility as a role model. We often recognize outstanding coaches here, but today we recognize Coach Dyer not just as an outstanding coach, but as an outstanding human being who loves these young men with whom he works. I came to know a little bit about Coach Dyer last fall when one of his former football players, Nick Blakely, died on the football field at Stetson University of sudden cardiac arrest. Coach Dyer became an avid supporter of this Sudden Cardiac Arrest Act that David Clark authored. And I observed as he just reached out in an amazing manner to the family of Nick, and as he ministered to the young men on his team who had played with Nick. Coach Dyer is an exceptional individual, and an individual who is called, as he says, called by God to be a coach. And how wonderful it is to have educators like Andy Dyer in our schools. Coach Dyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Ms. Chandler. I want to brag on Ms. Chandler very quickly, just for the support that she's provided Ms. Blakely, and I've seen her personally just give a tremendous amount of her time to help a family in need that's been through a hard time. It's a great honor to be here. This is very interesting. My parents are in the balcony somewhere. They came on down to Hot Atlanta today to be a part of this, so thank you for being here. I want to introduce these young men. To me, I have the greatest job on the planet, and that's being a football coach. I get to be around awesome young men every single day of my life. And I'm going to introduce these guys. This is Andrew Booth. He's a junior at Archer High School. Colby Wooden is a junior at Archer High School. This is Carter Peavy, our quarterback. He's a sophomore. And next to him is Ethan Lane, our center. And, I want to brag on these guys. Football is the greatest team sport on the planet. And the only reason I'm standing up here is because these guys can play some football. Okay, they're awesome. They're great teammates, great students, and great leaders. So, again, thank you guys very much, and we wish you guys a great Friday and a great weekend.
Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions. The clerk will read.
Commending Prevent Child Abuse Habersham and recognizing April 2018 as Prevent Child Abuse Awareness Month at the State Capitol. Commending the Brunswick Job Corps Eagles basketball team for winning the JCAA National Championship, honoring the life and memory of Dr. Ann L. Hardiman. Recognizing and commending Johnny Pearl Hammond on her outstanding community service. Commending the Putney Neighborhood Watch Association as long-established members for their irreplaceable service, support, and assistance. Recognizing and commending W. Frank Wilson on his outstanding public service, celebrating the 10th anniversary of Stronghold Christian Church East. Commending the Walter Rodney Foundation and recognizing March 23, 2018 is Dr. Walter Rodney Day at the State Capitol. Recognizing and commending Deacon George Utley Jr. Recognizing and commending Mariah Imani Stackhouse. Recognizing and commending the Forest Park High School Parent Teachers Student Association, recognizing and commending Susan Legger Boyke, honoring the life and memory of Georgia State Trooper Tyler D. Parker. Recognizing and commending Representative Earl O'Hara on the occasion of his retirement from the Georgia House of Representatives. Recognizing Psi Omega chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Congratulating Silk on his 25th anniversary. Commending Dara Bennett, the Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals 2019 Principal of the Year, congratulating Grace Hatcher Atkins and recognizing May 18, 2018 as Grace Atkins Day at Westwood Schools. Recognizing March 22, 2018 as Georgia Academy of Audiology Day at the State Capitol, commending the Langston Hughes High School Boys Basketball Team for winning the 2018 GHSA Class 6A State Basketball Championship. Recognizing September 2018 as National Prostate Cancer Awareness Month at the State Capitol, commending the West Lake High School Girls Basketball Team for winning the 2018 GHSA Class 7A State Basketball Championship. Recognizing and commending Sharon McLaughlin, Mrs. Walton County International 2018. Recognizing and commending Mount Troutman. Commending Bethlehem Christians Academy's 2018 Star Teacher. Commending the Freeman Fletcher Family Reunion. Recognizing March 2018 as National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month at the State Capitol. Recognizing and commending Reverend Joseph E. Baker. Recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. Curtis Crocker. Recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. L.K. Allen. Recognizing and commending Reverend Donald Mathis for his dynamic Christian ministry. Recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. Peggy Banks Miles. Recognizing January 9, 2018 as Georgia stands with the United Nations Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Recognizing March 8, 2018 as United Nations International Women's Day, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We are going on to the rules calendar. We're going on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 397.
Senate Bill 397 by Senator Watson, the first Stones to the 23rd. Cowser to the 46th, Huffstetler to the 52nd, Kirk to the 13th, and others. Being titled an act to amend Chapter 37 of Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating the acquisition and disposition of real and personal property. This bill having referred to the Committee on Government Affairs. The committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stevens to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the bill that I'm presenting to you today, 397, allows municipalities to do the very same thing the state of Georgia does in using real estate brokers to get the highest and best price for the property, our surplus property, that we can. You're going to also see on your desk an amendment that, in addition to cities, allows counties to do the same thing. And they must go through an RFP process to get these real estate brokers. And Mr. Speaker, if there's no questions, I'll yield the vote and ask for your favorable support.
You have no questions. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection? We have an amendment. We have an amendment. It is AM 450010. Clerk will read the amendment.
AM 450010 by Representative Stevens, 164th, and Fleming of the 121st. This amendment is printed and in your books.
We have the amendment on the desk. Is there any objection to the amendment? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 397 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. For what purpose does Representative Teasley rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Pursuant to House Rule 133, I ask to be excused from this vote.
Gentleman has that right, and the journal will so reflect. What purpose does Representative Bonner rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Pursuant to House Rule 133, I ask to be excused from this vote.
Gentleman has that right, and the journal will so reflect. We are voting on the bill. All those in favor are voting green. Those opposed are voting red. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 397, the ayes are 156. The nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 451.
Senate Bill 451 by Senator Walker, the 20th, Martin of the 9th, Strickland of the 17th, Wilkinson of the 50th, Black of the 8th. Be titled an act to amend Code Section 2627 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating the Soil and Water Conservation Commission additional duties and powers. This bill I refer to the Committee on Natural Resources and Environment. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman McCall to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Senate Bill 451 deals once again with agricultural water metering as it relates to irrigation. There's been hours and hours and hours put into this language that you see before you. This is probably the 15th version of this language since it got over here from the Senate. I don't know how much time they put into it, but we have put a tremendous amount of time and hours figuring this out. And to that end, I need to thank Chair Lady Smith, Buddy Harden, Sam Watson, Clay Perkle, Terry England for their work on the House side, Senator Larry Walker, Tyler Harper, and Dean Burke for their input, even as it got on this side. Also, out of the governor's office, Katie Sharp, and then Margie Dickey with the ag water metering, Lauren Curry with EPD, Cliff Lewis with EPD, all put in a lot of time to get this language where it is. Even Chris Riley and Governor Deal sat in on some of these long meetings we had to give us their input and what actually some of the stuff that needed to happen for the reasons that we're having to do this. If you look at Section 1, all it does is just codifies a move of the ag water metering program to EPD, which is under Department of Natural Resources. Section 2 deals with surface water withdrawals and metering for ag irrigation. And Section 3 deals with groundwater withdrawals and metering for ag irrigation. And if you kind of look, the surface water and the groundwater sections basically mirror each other except for very few needed differences in the two ways that farmers get water for the crops. Basically, surface water comes out of ponds or streams, and groundwater comes out of wells. So there's a few little differences that we had to take into consideration. You have to have a permit to pump water if you pump over 100,000 gallons a day on a monthly average. So if you do the math out, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail on it, but to give you an idea of why you have to have a permit, if you pump 100,000 gallons a day on a monthly average, that's about 3 million gallons a month out of one permitted system that you can pump. If you figure 27,130 gallons is how many gallons of water when it rains an inch, when you put an inch of water on an acre. And for y'all that don't know what an acre is about a football field. So when it rains an inch, there's 27,130 gallons of water falls on a football field. And then when you figure all that down, you have to have a permit to put an inch of water on basically 110 acres one time a month. And I don't want to get too many numbers because my wife says don't do numbers because folks don't listen. But I'm trying to give you a little bit of perspective on how many acres you can put 1 inch of water on and have to have a permit. I can get into a lot of farmer language that's in this bill, but I'd probably have to explain to a lot of you what we're talking about. So I don't want to do all of that either and take up time because I know we got a long calendar. In 1995, one of the first votes that I made as a representative was a water compact between Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. Neither state could change a comma. The words had to be the same, but what was missing out of that compact language was how much water that Georgia had to let go through the dam at Lake Seminole into Florida. 24 years later, we are still arguing over how much water goes through the dam into the panhandle of Florida, to the point that it's in the Supreme Court now, today. And part of this language and the reason that we are doing Senate Bill 451 will help satisfy the Supreme Court and the special master on the decision that they are going to make, hopefully in Georgia's favor in the lawsuit with Florida. Mr. Speaker, if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. Most farmers in the affected areas that this will encompass are okay. Like I say, there's been a lot of input, a lot of work, a lot of hours put into the language that you see before you. So, Mr. Speaker, if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
You have a couple of questions. Do you yield?
If they friendly ones, yes, sir.
Well, I'll let you make that determination. Chair recognizes the chair of the Natural Resources and Environment Committee, Chairman Smith.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to say, does the gentleman yield in the well? You have done an unbelievable job of working with the impacted people to find a solution to this problem. And to the members of the House, this compromise that is coming before you today, I would say 5 or more hours a day have been spent on trying to find the right balance. The northern part of our state is already metered. This is a metering process now for the southern part of the state. And what it essentially does, is it not true, that it gives us greater standing in our court cases before the Supreme Court and proves that we're good stewards of our land. Again, thank you for what you've done.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and yes, ma'am, it does give us a little more leverage in the court case. And the other thing I want to make sure everybody understands, I didn't do this by myself. There was a lot of other people involved in helping us get where we are.
You have other questions. Do you care to yield?
I'll take a couple if it'll help folks understand, but I don't want to take up a whole lot of time.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, as a farmer in this state, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work on this bill. I also want to thank the governor's office and EPD and all of our colleagues in this body that have worked diligently on this piece of legislation to protect our most valuable resource. And this is a good bill, and I appreciate all your work on it.
And thank you for your input, and I hope you get to water your squash all you need to with no white flies.
Do you further yield? One more. Chair recognizes Representative Brockway to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, yield.
Especially since this affects Gwinnett County so much.
Yes, sir. That's a great bill, sir. A friendly question. You mentioned in your presentation that an acre is about the size of a football field.
That's right.
And I wanted to let you know there's a new sports team in Atlanta called Atlanta United that plays soccer, which is sometimes called football. And I just wanted to clarify, are we talking about American football, or are we talking about soccer when we're talking about the size of an acre?
We're talking about 43,560 square feet.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I yield well. I appreciate y'all voting for this. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 451 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 451, the ayes are 167, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair would like to have your attention. We're going to do one more bill and then break for lunch, and this has been an extremely difficult morning. I have been asked to let you know what we knew a few minutes before we came into session this morning, or what we had heard, that Chairman Andy Welch's father was killed in a tragic accident this morning down in Henry County. Chairman Welch is obviously on his way to be with his family, so I'm going to ask that you please lift that family up during this time of unbelievable tragedy and grief. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. We will obviously be passing along the arrangements for Chairman Welch's father when we have those. We're going to do one more bill before the lunch break. Chair Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 1. I'm sorry. I changed. Representative Fleming. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 402.
Senate Bill 402 by Senator Gooch, the 51st, Counselor to the 46th, Kennedy the 18th, Miller the 49th, Ginn the 47th, and others, being entitled an act to enact the Achieving Connectivity Everywhere Act to amend Titles 32, 36, 48, and 50 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. The committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Jay Powell, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I tell you what the bill is about, I'm going to tell you what the bill is not about. If you've been getting calls or contact emails from your local government, cities and counties, complaining about a broadband bill, this is not it. This does not deal with rights of way, and it does not infringe on local government's control of their rights of way. So disregard any communications you've received in reference to this bill from your local governments, because that's Senate Bill 426 that they're concerned about, not 402. They love 402. So, having said that, this is the Senate version of what the House passed in House Bill 887, and it passed by 170 to 3. So having said that, let me tell you what the differences are, the major differences are between the House version that you voted on a couple of weeks ago and the Senate version that you are being asked to consider today. Probably the most global change between the two is in the House version, we had as the lead agency GEMA, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, and in the Senate version, it's the Georgia Technology Agency. And so in the Senate version, they've got GTA that's doing the overall planning for broadband in rural Georgia, and have the Department of Community Affairs administering the grant program and administering the model ordinance program, and the Department of Economic Development promoting broadband communities that meet certain requirements. So those are just the agency differences. We actually have looked at both approaches and sort of like the Senate version, so we kept those provisions that were in the Senate bill rather than the House bill. The other parts of the bill we tried to bring together with the House bill. There were some things that we liked better about the House bill than we did the Senate bill, and some things we liked in the Senate bill that were not in the House bill. And so we've sort of tried to bring those bills into the middle. I anticipate that there will probably be some kind of conference committee on this because we have changed this bill significantly. But how it differs from the House version that you voted on, in addition to the lead agency being the Georgia Technology Authority, in starting on line 79, DOT is involved in this bill, and it was not involved in the House version. And what it does is allows DOT to use its rights of way to implement broadband or technology using the right of way. And there's anticipated that it will generate some revenue to the state of Georgia, and that revenue would be available for the grant program at some point in time in the future. The local governments are required to address broadband issues in their comprehensive plans. There is an element in House Bill 887, which, well, actually there's an element that does not exist in the Senate version of 402 or the House version in 887 that we put in the Senate version, and that is to expand the organizations that can be involved in providing rural broadband to include rural telephone cooperatives. The House version and the Senate version both allowed EMCs to get into the broadband business, but rural telephone cooperatives provide that same rural area, and so we decided that it would be appropriate for them to be allowed to provide these services as well. One important addition to the Senate bill is on line 698, we add our speaker as a board member of the One Georgia Authority, thinking that we certainly should have a voice in that authority. And so there are a lot of other smaller changes, but rather than go through them, I would just like to ask for your favorable consideration, and I'll be happy to stand for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have a number of questions if you care to yield.
I'll yield for a couple.
Chair recognizes the minority leader of the House, Leader Trammell, to your left for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
With respect to the grants for expansion of infrastructure, as I read the present bill, it would provide both for capital but also for operating. Is that an accurate?
That is not the intention. The bill specifically says in the grant program that it is limited to capital, but the only thing that could even possibly be interpreted as maintenance and operations would be the backhaul and transport. And backhaul and transport is basically the middle mile. If I own a system and I've got my headquarters here and then I've got my distribution over here, the backhaul and transport is that middle mile that connects those two. I may own it, in which event it's a capital expense, or I may lease it, in which event it's a capital lease, which could be interpreted as operations, but it's essential to the provision of that service. So we included it as a grantable piece of the project.
Would the gentleman further yield?
Sure.
Would you agree that if we're limiting it to capital expenditure, we allow for broader expansion of infrastructure throughout the state?
Ask that again.
Would the gentleman agree that if we're limiting whatever the definition of capital expenditure, the hard infrastructure, rather than operating expenses, that would allow us to go further in terms of laying infrastructure throughout the state, as opposed to if we included operating expenses?
That would be correct, but we also have to understand that this is not a subsidy like I'm going to give you $100,000 a year because you can't make a profit. This is limited to a one-time grant so that you can build a system. So if it does any kind of backhaul and transport, and if that could be considered as operations, it would only be for the initial startup. It would not be a recurring charge back to the state. And the other thing that we require in here is that they have some skin in the game, whoever they are. So it's not like the state's funding all of it. The state's funding approximately half of it, or no more than half of it. So I don't think it's going to be a significant part.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons to to your left for a question.
Thank you, Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
For an easy one.
I wanted to ask you, is it not true that Senate Bill 402, although it has elements in it that are products of the Rural Development Council, Senate Bill 402 is not a product of the Rural Development Council? The House Rural Development Council, Senate Bill 402 is not a product of that. Is that not true?
I think I would disagree with that, even though I think Senator Gooch in the preparation of this acted independently. There are more similarities between this and House Bill 887 than there are differences, and House Bill 887 definitely was a product of the Rural Development Council, and quite frankly, there are some elements in 402 that I like better than 887 and have included them and kept them.
Okay. Gentleman, further yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that throughout the process for this bill being in the House, including the final vote in Ways and Means, I guess maybe Monday or whenever that was, that I have expressed a number of concerns about the language of the bill as it is now?
Yes, sir, I think you have.
Okay. Just one more, if you would. And isn't it true, because of the need for broadband in this state and those unserved areas for the many reasons we've talked about before, and in my hopes that this bill will go to, after being voted out of here, which I will support, but after being voted out of here, and with my hopes, it will go to conference committee, and some of these concerns and some of these issues that need to be addressed will be addressed. Isn't it true that I will support the bill and look forward to voting for it? Thank you.
Well, I hope that's true, and I would think that anything that happens in further, whether it's Senate agree as amended or whether it's in conference, will do nothing but strengthen the bill.
Do you further yield?
I'll yield for one more, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tanner to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, I will.
First of all, isn't it true that you and Senator Gooch have worked extremely hard on this legislation, along with Chairman Parsons and others that served on several study committees over the past several years?
That would be true.
Also, just more of a statement, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the #1 issue that my voters call me and email me about in rural North Georgia, is the concern of a lack of options for broadband service. And as we've traveled the state, we've heard the same thing from voters all over the state of Georgia and rural communities. Isn't that true?
That is true, and I would agree with that statement.
Mr. Chairman, I encourage you to keep up the good work and to continue to strengthen this legislation so those of us who live in rural Georgia can get some options that the people who live in Metro Atlanta currently already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I will yield the will and ask for favorable consideration. And remember, this is not Senate Bill 426.
Gentleman has yielded the will. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 402 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Pizzo rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that on line 252 of this bill, the word rural is struck from the Rural Telephone Cooperative Act, and I'm just not sure why that's being struck.
Well, I don't have the bill right here in front of me. I will accept the gentleman's representation, and you might want to talk to the author to find out why. Those in favor of the bill are voting green. Those opposed are voting red. Have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 402, the ayes are 161, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes Chairman England for a motion.
I move that this House disagree to the Senate sub for House Bill 684.
Chairman England has moved that the House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 684. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 684 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, Jones of the 47th, Burns of the 159th, and others to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019.
Chair recognizes Chairman England to explain the Senate substitute.
Mr. Speaker, this is, as everyone knows, just what we have to do in the first of the process to set up going to conference on the budget, and so I'd appreciate everybody's agreement.
On the gentleman's motion that the House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 684, is there any objection to the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, the House has disagreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 684. Chair recognizes Representative Gardner for an announcement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The City of Atlanta delegation will meet immediately in room 605 for our final legislative meeting. Lunch will be served. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Golick for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciary Non-Civil will meet immediately upon the lunch break in room 406 of the LOB for a very brief meeting. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hitchens for an announcement.
The Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee will meet in the anteroom immediately upon adjournment for a quick meeting.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hatchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This one is a little early, but the Majority Caucus will meet Monday at 12 o'clock. Lunch will be served, and that's Monday. Thank you.
House will be in recess for lunch until 1:45 p.m.